Welcome back to Soapbox Speakers, the 12th instalment, otherwise known as Ode to Droney Boy.
Yes, yeah. Like,
So, our first topic of conversation.
Yeah, do you
oh
wanna-
my god, the Droney Boy! What the fuck, man? This stuff.
do the intro, sir. Introduce
I'm
it.
gushing.
I can't intro. I'm just gushing so hard. My penis is so hard.
My balls are erect. I've not been this impressed since the London riots in regards to the everyman's ingenuity.
Well, I mean, I am curious to find out who did it, because the police have said some weird shit.
True.
And I mean, I have a lot to say about this.
Me too.
You crack on, son.
Well, but I think yours is interesting because if you can throw some illumination onto whether or not this is the everyman, or if it's because I've seen a lot of conspiracy rumors running around, 40 sightings with no pictures of drones and shit like that. Like it's just some sort of ploy, and it's not actually a drone, and it's something else, or it's distracting from Theresa May's government is one of them that I heard.
I mean, okay. Here is my gut feeling on what I think this is going to turn out to be, if they ever say publicly what happened. I suspect it's an anorak, which for those who don't know what an anorak is, it's people who do train spotting and plane spotting and log the plane, the number of the plane, the identity number of the plane and the train.
Right.
And they photograph them, and they do they are very anal and fastidious about collecting this information. I'll be honest with you, it's borderline, and I don't mean this pejoratively, it's an obsessional thing that I think has its roots probably in borderline autistic spectrum kind of obsessional stuff.
Maybe.
And
that would make sense, actually.
Yeah, and I have a sneaking suspicion that whoever this drone pilot is going to turn out to have been an aviation anorak. But that doesn't make sense. Why doesn't it?
Because it's been shut down for 24 hours.
Yeah.
It went from Thursday to parts of Friday, didn't it? I think it's up and running now.
It is now, yeah.
Yeah. So
why does that? Sorry, why does that?
Because a drone can only last 30 minutes in the air. So has it been one? And also the police couldn't find who owned the drone. So it was pinging off of they
found the drone.
No, they couldn't find out who was controlling the drone.
Yeah.
Drones. It must be more than one.
Well, personally, I'm of the suspicion it wasn't being controlled.
Okay.
It was first GPS autopilot is a relatively low cost bit of tech that you can buy in a drone.
Okay.
But
battery power to last 24 hours is not. So
no. The average battery life for a drone is something like 25 minutes.
Yeah. So how do we answer that one then?
In all honesty, I think that it's once the initial inciting incident raised concern.
Right.
There were other false spottings that increased security risks, that that were flagged as security issues when otherwise they wouldn't have been.
Right.
And they dragged it out as long as they did.
Just 10 hours ago, two arrested over flight disruption.
Yeah, and like I said, I have a sneaking suspicion.
There was a string of drone sightings.
Yeah, and it's possible there were multiple drones involved, but I'm just saying that if you've got one drone, I've seen there's some footage on the Daily Mail of a drone that has actually entered the it's the parking area for planes where they load up passengers. I forget what that's called. There's a term for it. Terminal. And it's above the terminal grounds.
Right.
So if you've ever been to Gatwick, that is actually quite a significant distance into the site, which I don't think you could do with a radio controller unless you had very powerful signal. But again, I don't know if the drone is going to be able to send a signal back.
Well, this is what they like.
Which is why I'm suspecting autopilot.
Apparently, they've arrested 2 people in Crawley over this. Let's see where Crawley is.
Again, it also wouldn't surprise me. This is again a gut feeling. If it is an anorak who's done this and naively not realised the potential consequences of it, I have a sneaking suspicion they actually turned themselves in. They weren't caught. They just said, yeah, that was us.
It was 2 people,
Yeah, okay.
a man and a woman,
Fair.
right near Gatwick Airport.
They were arrested at Gatwick Airport.
No, they're in Crawley. Crawley is like...
Is near Gatwick.
Well, that's Gatwick, that's Crawley.
That's fine.
So it wasn't. So it seems like they might not have necessarily been pinging it off of a.
Like I said, I don't
something.
think I don't think this was radio controlled.
Okay.
I've heard some rumours that you can control a drone using the cellular network for mobiles,
Okay.
which is cool if the case. I mean, I don't see why you couldn't. But in all honesty, I think if you're going to do this, the best way to do it for any budding environmentalists, anarchists who want to.
Because I was under the impression that this was going to be like an environmental protest because it would be very, very effective. You know, it's just like protesting the use of jet fuel and the use of aviation. So,
I mean, it would be a good way of going about it. I mean, if Gatwick's security is so shit that it can't deal with a drone or series of drones, and any privately available drone, commercially available drone system can shut down Gatwick Airport, that says an awful lot about the security of Gatwick Airport.
Yeah.
There is a bunch of stuff I have to say about this. So there was an incident in Russia.
just very quickly,
Yeah.
what I find really interesting is they've arrested 2 people on suspicion of this 10 hours ago, and yet we still have no idea as to the motivations behind it.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because, you know, when somebody goes on a shooting spree, we know about the motivations within like hours of the shooting spree. You know, it's like it's front page news, but this isn't. And I'm wondering if that's because of why they did it.
Yes, like
and,
I said,
and the fact that they want to hide whatever the message is. Or,
like I said, I have a sneaky suspicion it's because it was anoraks who did it out of naivety, and there is a reason I think that, because during research.
yeah, but why wouldn't you release that? That would turn a potential like because everybody
Well, if you'd allow me to explain.
All right.
Here's why I think it, and I think what I say next might blow your mind a little bit.
Okay.
Did you know that the top 10 prosecuted most prolific hackers that were caught that were of UK nationality
Right.
were all autistic spectrum young men?
Okay.
And many of whom have faced extradition orders that have been prevented in UK courts to countries where attacks occurred. The most famous one is McKinnon, which has been doing Gary McKinnon. Sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. And he hacked NASA and military computer networks in America using like really rudimentary, it's literally kind of admin 1 password is password exploits.
Right.
Because of how shittly the networks had been set up. The administrators who'd set up those networks had not changed the password or had not changed the admin name. They kept the factory settings and not changed them. That's how he did all of his hacking. At
that point,
yeah,
I don't feel like that's hacking. I feel like
that is
gross negligence. Like the person who should be tried there is the person who set it up, not the poor young lad who just used the fucking admin password.
Funnily enough, because of his condition, autistic spectrum disorder, they felt that that an extradition wasn't justified because it was felt that the US courts would not appropriately factor that in because there is a precedent.
Yeah, there is.
Because there is an obsessional. There's quite commonly a obsessional nature that comes with autism, and there is also a naivety of consequence. Those together means that some of the most prolific hackers in the UK quite often
no idea what the response would be.
And also have no idea of what the potential ramifications of what's going on. They're not doing it to profit from it. He was searching NASA and military servers looking for proof of covering up free energy projects and cover up of aliens. That was why he was doing it.
Yeah.
And he's always had a fascination with space. Interestingly enough, in an interview that he's done, you can find these online on YouTube. He said that there was 3 images that he found that he thought were odd, and he's never seen NASA release them, but he found this on NASA servers. And he brings up the fact that he's always had a lifelong fascination with space and space travel. So he's quite
interesting.
He's quite intimately knowledgeable of what tech we've been putting up there and what standard technology looks like, and what he saw, he has never seen before. And what these images were. He's of the opinion it was alien stuff, but it's interesting that he found something that a guy who is obsessed with aeronautics with regards to space travel and rocketry and satellites has concluded that this is not something that I've ever come across.
Right.
So I'd make of that what you will, but I just find that interesting.
Just asking questions. Well,
No.
I'm not.
I don't think it was aliens. I just find it interesting that he found something.
Yeah.
And that a guy who.
But if you're looking for something, you're bound to find it. That's the general gist of it, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but if a guy who's obsessed with, knows enough about that material, says that there was nothing about it that he recognised in conventional tech.
Yeah.
That's what I find interesting.
Right. So it might not be aliens, but it might be technology that is not it's not public knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I believe. That definitely could be a thing.
And most likely probably a high grade military satellite or something. I don't know.
Yeah, true. Reminds me of that there's a meme going around which is like, hi, I'm a recent anti-vaxxer. And I'm at uni and I'm trying to do a paper on why vaccinations are bad, but you've got to use scholarly articles, and I've been delving really deep into our libraries, but everything just seems to be pro-vaccination. Nothing says anti-vaccinations. I was wondering if anybody could help me find some scholarly articles that would help me with my project. And then the response is like, well, maybe you should just change your. If you can't find any evidence to support your point of view, then your point of view might just be wrong. and that not registering, So if
the
I'm
cognitive distance, though.
Yeah. So it's
there's a part of me that feels
I went
it's a
and
troll.
looked for aliens, and so I found some stuff that was unusual, and so I assumed it was aliens as opposed to anything else.
Well, that isn't what he said. Firstly, just to be clear, I'm taking his during the interview. It came up. Because his reasons for doing for going on these servers and looking around was for this. That was his sole purpose. It wasn't because he was there to cause harm to the NASA server.
If anything, they should pay him as a security consultant because it could have been somebody
Funny enough,
malicious.
His profession is a network administrator.
Fair. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. So what he was doing was, using his trade.
I mean, you've got to be a bit obsessive and shit if you're going to be a coder or anything to do with IT, because God, it's so fucking dull. Jesus
bit obsessive
Christ.
and shit. Anyway, back to the my anorak argument.
Right.
Like I said, the way this has been done.
It's a boring argument though.
Why?
It's just some guy doing a thing. He has opened the doors because ISIS are threatening now drone strikes, like drone activity around airports.
Well,
which I find really funny.
Here's the thing regarding that.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm baffled by it. About 6 months ago.
Yeah.
I think it made BBC News on their website, but I remember reading a number of articles regarding a swarm drone strike in Russia at a military installation. There was an electricity substation that was taken out by, I think it was up to 20 DIY drones with small explosive devices built into them.
Jesus.
Right.
And we haven't taken that on board.
Well, my question here, my question there is that, I mean, to put it bluntly, I could probably pull that off.
Well, yeah. I mean, easy.
What I mean, and I'm not saying that because of my skill. I'm saying that because I'm aware of how easy that is to do.
Yeah, I mean, it would take a bit of time to make one big enough to carry an explosive device worth talking about. But
this is probably this is probably why they use 20.
Yeah.
Rather than carry one massive payload, you carry smaller payloads.
Oh my God, it's like a miniaturized version of fucking Star Wars, man.
It's CP as fuck is what it is.
We're going down the channel.
The trench run. Well,
it's gonna be the future. It's just gonna be drones as opposed to use the drone, Luke. Use the drone.
Here's the thing. I understand it's potentially a boring answer, but it's also interesting because of the precedent it sets. It kind of shows. First of all, Gatwick is for those that don't know, is a major, one of the busiest airports in the world. Is a major airport in the UK. It's shutting down for 8 hours or however long it was.
Hours.
Yeah, cost the economy a huge amount.
Yep.
And all it really took, and I've checked this online, you can buy a drone that has autopilot features and could travels at a speed that meant it could do a circuit of Gatwick with the battery life that it has for £700. So, yeah.
Well, hopefully they'll be putting some fucking security measures in now.
Well, here's the thing with that.
Yeah.
There's a couple of Facebook groups that I'm a member of, Jake is as well, and there's been some really cool discussions on there. And I was chatting to a guy who knows how to hack drones, because most drones don't have encryption on their remote access, and also I think he's a bit of a ham radio enthusiast. They're overriding the control features and taking over the drone is a relatively easy thing to do. If it's remote control, but if it's on an autopilot, what you can do, and I'm not sure if they have done this yet, I know they've done it experimentally, but you can spoof GPS transponder signals and cause even a sat nav in a car to send you on the wrong route, because sat navs also have very low security, and you can spoof their GPS transponder signal. My question here is...
That'll take highwaymen to a whole new level.
Yeah, no, completely.
Yeah.
My question here is, what happens if... I don't know what the legality is of having GPS spoofing hardware at an airport is. What happens if an operator decides to spoof the GPS transponder in a plane, for example?
Oh, well, yeah.
Right. So these are questions that I have.
Yeah. It depends if it's possible.
Yeah.
Hopefully you'd have a bit more.
So as far as I can tell, the only thing that you can, and I did actually see this bit of kit on the ground, the only real bit of kit that would have helped here is which they deployed after the fact. It wasn't there to begin with, and there are security systems for drones that are commercially available that is this. And it's permanently there doing a sweep. It's a long-range thermal camera system that picks up the low thermal imprint of the drone against the skyline, and that indicates where it is.
Low-flying drones?
Well, no, it would pick that up.
All right. Depends how low-flying it is, though.
I mean, that is true, but then you have multiple observers on the ground who can see it.
True.
And given that there are security watchtowers along Gatwick, that...
You'd hope they'd notice.
Yeah.
But...
But did they?
but human boys, though. Like, not very good at their... at reducing their human error.
Yeah. So you can potentially shut down an entire airport with a single drone.
For 30 minutes.
Well, no.
Well, no, because if there were multiple sightings, that means there were multiple drones, which is why I don't think it was an anorak, because over 36, they wouldn't be shut down for 36 hours for one drone that went around.
Depends how long it took them to deploy the cat tech that they had to do recon for a drone. It also depends on what their actual security protocol is for if a drone sighting occurs. Now, if it's like a drone on the outskirts, that's we'll keep an eye on it, I would imagine. This is purely speculation on my part. But like I said, I've seen footage where someone has filmed the drone, or a drone that was over Gatwick, that was that had entered one of the terminals, that was in a terminal's airspace. So that is deep within the airport. And that was there.
Okay.
And also based on how it was moving, I think it was a pre-planned flight. I don't think this thing was being remotely operated.
Well, that makes sense to me, pre-planned flight.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have to control it, why the fuck would you? But
I'm not even sure you could.
But the idea of how okay, so if it was pre-controlled, right, pre-programmed,
pre-flight, yeah.
And if you're an anorak, you'd want the drone back, right?
Yes.
So you'd program it to come back to you.
Yes. Or you'd program it to land at a place where you go and pick it up.
Right.
This is it. There's a lot of ways you could do this.
So why would you then do it again?
Well, the question is, did they do it again? So far, I've only seen one piece of footage that I can say, yeah, that was definitely a drone.
Right.
So that is one incident.
Okay. And you think the multiple sightings are like...
Oh, yeah, they're coming back to like what the security protocols are. It's quite possible that if you see a drone within the terminal area or within this area of the airport, that is a shutdown until we work out what's going on.
Yeah, I know that I can believe.
Yeah, so that's
right?
why. So that's why a single drone can shut an airport down for 36 hours.
But if the Anoraks were going to bring themselves forward as soon as they realised,
yeah,
why would it take them as long as it did to come forward?
Because they were busy looking at the footage that they'd captured from the drone?
Maybe. I am of the opinion that it is some sort of like it was deliberately done to shut down Gatwick.
Interesting. Yeah.
Like as opposed to
as a proof of
accidentally
concept thing, you know.
Well, like either as like there's a lot of different theories running around which I've liked the idea of. Like one of them is like it's literally like it's a what's it called? Like a hostage situation, as in like if you pay us.
Oh, they're going to blackmail the government, right?
No, blackmail Gatwick.
Okay, this raises an interesting question actually, because this also came up on some of the debates things. Because an airport is considered a national strategic asset,
right?
Governments globally tend to bail out airports if they fail.
Right.
And I appreciate Gatwick is a private enterprise, but there is a moral hazard trade there,
right,
which is that they will tend to always be bailed out because quite often no one has the money to buy Gatwick and take it over, basically.
Right.
So the current owner needs to keep owning it because they're the only one currently there that owns it and and got the funds to do it. You can't just do that on the fly, and you can't have an airport just shut down. And because of that, airports often don't operate well.
The market always delivers.
Well, this is an example of it not because the governments have decided to continuously bail it out, which turns it into a moral hazard trade, which means it's not actually the free market. Government is having to intervene.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if the government slips I mean, also from a security standpoint, there's a very intimate relationship between the government and the business as an airport.
Yeah.
There has to be, for security reasons.
I get you.
I'll
get you.
Yeah, so so I'm glad we kind of touched on basically every kind of aspect of this that I found interesting and was going to bring up anyway. Yeah. But I find it does set a precedent.
Yeah, because I feel like even if it was done by accident, the next one won't be.
Yeah.
And if there is a next one, it depends. Because if I was an airport right now, I'd be like, oh buddy, let's go get some drone security right fucking now.
So far, the only thing I can tell that would work, right now, the safest way that you could get away with it, let's phrase it that way, and pull it off and actually shut down an airport by getting a drone dangerously close into the airspace is an autopilot system, and once it sets off there is no receiver. In actual fact, you can buy drones that have no radio control. The entire thing is programmable.
I'm not being funny, right? But I understand why people don't want to fire bullets at drones because you don't know where the bullet goes.
I've heard this argument. What I would say is, as long as your firing angle is above 45 degrees, you don't actually need to worry.
Yeah.
Because the return velocity of the slug is not going to be high enough to kill someone.
Yeah. No, I'm aware of that, but human error. Again, don't fire at an angle that isn't 45 degrees. All right, sir.
Yes, don't shoot the hostage.
Yeah.
You're trained. These are trained.
But we're not talking about trained individuals, are we? We're talking about drones.
I don't know.
Airports.
I don't know. Police officers, trained snipers in the police, in the UK police. Yeah.
So we're going to take police snipers and we're going to put them in airports.
Well, that's literally what they did yesterday.
Yeah. In response to that, but is that what we're going to have a trained sniper on call? 24 hours a day.
You do know there's about 30.
No.
Let me be clear.
I'm talking about drone security here. I'm not talking about response. I'm talking about drone security. So I'm not saying, just bring a sniper in and shoot the drone once it's already shut down the airport. I'm talking about stopping drones getting into the airport in the first place.
Given that you already have about 12 fully trained armed officers in Gatwick Airport at any one time...
And 12 are going to cover the entire perimeter.
At any one time. Well, if you know where the drone is...
24 hours a day.
What do you mean? Oh, you're talking about like sniper nests where they're just ready.
Actual security, not response. Security.
Oh, I see. No.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't see that happening.
Mm.
But I can see, well, we've had a drone enter. Let's set up that sniper perimeter.
Okay.
Or whatever tech they've got. I mean, I've heard some arguments that you can like have a unidirectional microwave gun that fries the electrics, which interesting if you can pull it off. But again, at an airport.
I mean, I like the idea of anti-drone drones because that'd be hilarious.
The one I really like the idea of is eagles.
Apparently, that wouldn't work. I read an article somewhere that said that an eagle wouldn't actually do the job.
I mean, it depends on the drone. I mean, if we're talking about like a small, tiny quadcopter, an eagle can take one out. But if you're talking about one of those like multi-fan copters, that's like weighs like 15 kilos, then I don't think an eagle's going to take it out.
No, I think it might take the eagle out. Hawks, though, hawks would be better in the UK as opposed to eagles.
Yeah, sorry, I meant hawks. Hawks are easier to train, I think.
And native, I think. Yeah.
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 They're also a really good way of doing pigeon control in city centres and stuff. And buildings, like...
Yeah.
Like, in the sense that they only... The handler and the hawk only have to go there, like, 2 times a month. Yeah. If that. Because the pigeons soon learn that there's a predator there, so fuck off. Which I think is great.
Pigeons are fearless, though. Fucking hell.
Yeah, I like pigeons.
Oh.
I don't understand why people fucking hate them.
Well, they're a bit annoying.
Are they, though?
Yeah.
In what sense?
They're everywhere. Get in your face. Flap about a bit. Anyway.
All right.
Next topic of conversation.
Oh, well, I just want to say, drones are fucking awesome.
I mean, yeah.
Like, and also, I've long suspected this could be done. I've just never seen it happen. It's nice to have that confirmed. Yeah. Like I said, because actually, it was before the Russian thing, and then I read the Russian article, because I've always, I'm a bit of a tech enthusiast. So drones are on my radar anyway, and I muse on them quite often anyway, just because I find them interesting. And look at what they're capable of, hence why I know stuff that you can get and what there is, and what they are capable of. But then I saw the article in Russia regarding the drone swarm, which
sounds dope as fuck.
It's a really fucking cheap way of attacking a country's infrastructure, just saying. And it's ubiquitous. And you could people have been saying, like, well, should we ban drones? You can try.
Yeah.
But the trouble is, drones are, in actual fact, very easy to make.
Like, you can't ban all of the parts. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess you could start banning parts that specifically used to make drones, but even then you could jig something up.
It's an interesting little factoid, which I found out. I can't remember where I found this out, but I think it was to do with.
Because you could cast the propeller page yourself.
Well, I mean, the main bit of tech that was holding drones back was the energy density of the lithium batteries and the power to weight ratio of the electric motors.
Yeah.
And now that what's it called, contactless electric motors that have neodymium magnets built in.
Yeah.
We now finally got
that.
The trouble is, if you ban that, you also ban a huge amount of other shit that has nothing to do with drones.
But I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up on the watch list.
Possibly.
You know, like if somebody buys that particular type of engine
component,
in any sort of you only need one, so it would be kind of hard to map everybody that buys one. One engine.
Well, no, because
depending on how many drones
it's not a single engine.
Is it not?
Drones are never a single engine. That's a helicopter. The whole reason that the whole popularity of drones is their ease to fly, whereas RC helicopters are harder to fly.
Yes, but
a quadcopter is an
imagine how cool it would be if you produced a helicopter drone and built an autopilot that could.
Well, I'm pretty sure that already exists. The truth be told.
So,
your point stands, is what you're getting at.
Yes, it could potentially be used for the same effect.
Yeah, I imagine both would have the same electric motor in, and we were talking about battery components.
Really, if you think about it, it doesn't even need to be a drone. It could just be a bloody like electric fucking like a remote controlled plane or something. You know, just set it in the right direction and shoot it off.
I mean, the sky candles cause issues for commercial aircraft. You know those paper things you light a fire in.
If that gets into the engine, does that cause issues then?
It causes issues because I think it pings up on the radar and there's potential strikes. It's not that if it gets caught up in the engine, though, you never know. Having a bit of wire enter an engine spinning at like however many thousands of RPM while very hot could cause a problem.
Although I think
not an expert, but it's not the same as a bird. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And funny enough, a friend of mine used to test Rolls-Royce jet engines. She was part of the department.
Chucking a pigeon in it.
No, she was part of the department whose job it was to use an air cannon to fire frozen chickens into a running jet engine.
That's beautiful.
I shit you not.
It's legit beautiful. I love that that's a job.
I think she also tested like the ballistic properties of windows in airplanes.
Nice.
Awesome woman.
Yeah.
You got.
Tries to find her.
Sorry.
Nothing.
You had a thing?
Oh, what? Another one of my things.
Well, you asked earlier if I had. Oh, there was a little factoid I was going to give.
Okay.
Did you know that all commercially available GPS tracking systems have a limiter in them that means that if the GPS transponder is travelling faster than a given amount, it automatically shuts off? The reason for this is to stop people from jerry-rigging ballistic missiles.
Ooh.
How fucking cool is that?
That is pretty fucking cool, and I'm glad that they thought of it.
Yeah.
You know. Damn.
There's also another thing I found out during my research on drones. There's a thing called geofencing, which hasn't really been implemented, but a politician in the US did consider it. Basically, the GPS network and any system that uses that manufactures GPS transponders has a number of presets loaded into it, which is that if this transponder is found at this location, it shuts off.
Okay.
So you could essentially ring fence Gatwick Airport so that a drone autopilot system wouldn't be able to fly into there.
That would work.
An easy workaround for that though would be get a GLONASS transponder unit, which is the Russian equivalent of the US GPS system. You'd have to have unilateral agreement that we're all sticking to this geofencing thing.
You would. And of course the Russians would say, yes, we are, of course we are.
Yes, of course. Sorry, for those who aren't in the room watching this, I just did
everyone.
Of course, in parentheses.
Oh man, the Russians. Oh. So I read an interesting article on the Russians the other day, about how the Russians are basically did the most fucking grind work in World War II and yet received none of the actual kind of credit in history.
Yes.
Just thought I'd bring that up again.
Yeah,
I think I've brought it up before. It's just again I was just blown away by the numbers. It's like 16 to 50 million people died in Russia. And that's just on the Russian side as well.
Their contributions towards the war effort
were huge.
America likes to say that it came and saved us.
No, Russia saved us.
No, Russia saved
everyone.
Saved everyone.
Yeah, like throughout most of the war, 2/3 of the German army were engaged in Russia. So every single major Allied victory, right, paled in comparison to everything Russia was doing. There was a year where the Allies celebrated defeating I can't remember 60,000 German troops, and in the same year Russia had captured or killed 300,000, and then did the same next year. It's interesting to have my historical perspective reevaluated to the point where it's we were just kind of a little fly on the back of Hitler while he was dealing with Russia. That's what we were in the war.
We snuck in and delivered the killing blow, but yeah.
Only just though, because it was a fucking run.
We were only able to do that because Germany was so distracted with Russia and was devoting so many resources towards Russia.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Pretty much.
despite what you like, irrespective of what you might think of Soviet Russia at the time, and like whatever you think, it's probably justified because that was a horrific regime.
It was.
But with it, that nonetheless doesn't take away from the individual contribution of the Russian people. I would argue.
Yeah.
The Russian spirit did that in the same way that the what's the word of keep calm and carry on. In the UK,
yeah,
like, in the same way that the British people coped with the Blitz,
yeah,
and continued on.
In fact, grew the resolve deepened as opposed to broke.
Yeah. So I mean, in both instances, both should be honoured and applauded and remembered.
Instead of just one, at least in this country. I'm sure in Russia it's different.
Well, and this is where I always get a bit hazy regarding the Remembrance Day. Because I always thought Remembrance Day was a time to just reflect on lives lost during war. Its inciting incident was World War I in the trenches, but
yeah.
I thought it was, to remember all conflict.
Yeah.
Globally. I didn't think it was. I mean, I appreciate.
Yeah, but nationalism, Matt.
I appreciate it isn't celebrated globally, but why should it be? And am I not right in thinking that Jean-Claude Juncker came over this Remembrance Day to lay a wreath at the cenotaph?
I don't know.
Or there were like some pretty high-profile European leaders or like diplomats of countries that are like Germany and France, I think.
Yeah.
That were involved in the thing that happens at the cenotaph where like wreaths are laid.
Interesting.
So like they're part of that. Like they're there to commemorate. Is commemorate the right word? It's a eulogy, isn't it? It's a yearly eulogy that we do to just kind of remember of the whole thing, to remember the fallen.
Yeah.
Like I said, the inciting incident was definitely World War One because that was a conflict where it touched everyone in the UK. There wasn't a family that was unaffected.
Yeah, but my question is always like, how far back do you go? Like.
Well, I mean,
are we remembering
the thing that's worth mentioning.
Crusades?
No, because here's the thing. World War One particularly is unique because it was the first global conflict that was mechanised and industrialised.
Yeah.
Which is conflict on a very different scale.
First global conflict that was mechanised and industrialised. Could you argue that Genghis Khan mechanised and industrialised, and it was a global conflict? Because I'm pretty sure there would be a precedent for an argument there.
It was definitely a global conflict.
Yeah, and he mechanised on horseback, and he industrialised because he stole everything.
He mechanised on a horseback.
You know what I mean?
Think about what you just said.
Yeah, all right. Hands up on that one. That was a bit of a stupid thing to say, but you know what I mean. He was innovative. And he made use of technologies that were very unique. And I've seen some and mass produced them.
Yeah, but I don't know if you could make the argument that it's mechanised. Can I explain why?
Yeah, I guess.
I'll explain why, because
right.
the Industrial Revolution is unique because it was the first time that you were able to utilise horsepower and work that didn't directly come from an animal or a human. You were able to use coal or wood. Well, actually no coal, because you needed the energy density of coal to make steam engines viable.
Yeah.
Up until then, we were limited by the amount of rivers we could put water wheels on and the amount of windmills we could build. And even then, you could only use that energy intermittently and up to a certain point. Coal changed everything. You are liberating horsepower that otherwise formerly had to come from an animal. So it is a different thing. The productivity of a person massively exploded because of that.
Yeah.
And we're still in that phase now. Like, when people say that we don't make anything anymore, well, the fact is we do. It just takes a fraction of the amount of people to still make it.
Yeah.
That it once did, and that's only the case because technology has been utilised in such a way that most of it is automated.
Yeah, but I would argue that we've lost. We have lost a significant sense of artisan and craftsmanship.
Hence the revival of that right now.
Yeah.
It's the counterculture movement. Like, it always
counterculture can't count, Matt.
It always responds to like the vacuum. It doesn't respond to.
Yeah, true.
innovation, unfortunately. Everything has happened before and everything will happen again. All of this has happened before and it will happen again. Like,
so depressing. Ugh. True. That's why you should never be a historian. Dooms you to see the same mistakes repeated over and over again.
That's why I really like the fact that I live in the time that I do.
Why?
Because
you got no other choice, really. Like,
the best way I can put it is like this. So, I can go to a place like the Works, and I can buy a piece of software that is basically a desktop planetarium, which will model the solar system that we currently occupy and will tell me where the planets are 20 years from now. It'll tell me what the stars will look like from the Earth in 10,000 years and how different our skyline will be. All of that is knowledge that has accumulated through the generations. A comparable thing, looking at planetary movements 600 years ago, that was in I think it was the Middle East. There was I think it was the Byzantines. They had made huge astrolabe structures so that they could get very precise measurements of planetary and stellar movements, and that required a set of staff and academics and scribes and writing materials to do that. It took a whole group of people. I can now do that even better, and with even more functionality
for $5.99.
Oh yeah, for $5.99 from the Works on my desktop, and that is why I'm glad I live in the time that I live now.
Okay.
That blows me away. Like, you know that classic phrase of "I stand on the shoulders of giants" by Newton.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a false attribute. Like, it's used somewhat incorrectly because he was actually using that statement to insult one of his competitors. But anyway, not important. But like, I'm only here now because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. That is what that means. Like, I can now have that on my desktop and do it. You can probably even just go to a web browser and it will do it for you.
Right.
It's probably a JavaScript thing that you can now just do it for free. And yeah, for that reason, I'm grateful. I'm grateful because I live in the time now because I live longer than
my great uncles and aunts.
Yeah.
But
all of that has come from the work with others over time, and it's been accumulated. It's accumulated knowledge, and I'm at the end result of that, and an environment where I can also contribute to it.
Just before the entire world goes to shit.
Well, this is the other thing. We live in interesting times, and I mean that in the Chinese sense.
Yeah.
It's a time of great potential turmoil. It's a time when a drone can fucking shut down an airport. Jesus Christ. Just think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you got me.
So, and I'm
I don't
glad.
know what to say to that.
I'm
other
glad-
than, yeah, go right. I'm glad to.
I'm glad to be at the tail end
I'll be
of
even more glad when I've got a piece of land to call my own. Passed down to my children that I'm not going to have.
Oh yeah, sorry, you shared this article, and this is worth mentioning. I've completely forgotten about it, but I've just remembered it. The Britain's poor for their life expectancy has dropped for the first time in 60 years.
Yeah, since Victorian times.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah.
So, like,
but we're all in it together.
Oh,
And
don't fucking get me started. Well, that segues quite nicely into my next topic, actually.
Oh, go on.
So, I want to talk about my experience at the job centre.
Oh yes, please.
So, which was Monday, I think. Yeah, it was Monday. I got a job on Tuesday, but not because of the job centre.
No,
just to reiterate,
definitely not.
I didn't walk in and be like, "Yeah, look, I've got a job. Oh, thanks, buddies." So I went to the job centre, and this was solely.
Why was this?
Well, I'm going to explain. I'm going to explain why, but I want to start by saying that this is not me trying to like make excuses and thereby kind of go, but I wasn't really going to the job centre. That makes me better than other people because I would have if the job centre was. Like, if the whole universal credit system was in any way kind of like functional, and not derogatory and didn't make me feel like a piece of shit, I'd be happy to use it. I would want to use it because it's important to have an income at all times, because if you don't have an income, you can't live.
Yeah.
Let's put that is just the world we live in.
Freedom, Obama.
The only reason I was going to the job centre was to sign on so that I could get a free CSCS card, because there was a company that was giving you free training for a CSCS card, which, for those who don't know, is what you need to be a labourer on a building site or something like that, or be a carpenter on a building site, or anything to do with working in construction in that industry. You need a CSCS card, and you could get it for free, but only if you signed up for job seekers. So I went there and I signed up. I had to do it online initially, and they would ask me a load of questions. And then I went in and sat down with this lady, and this lady was like, "What was it?" So, and it's been a little while now since I've gone, so I might be a little bit haphazard. I might forget things and bring them back.
So I'm
in,
gonna keep my mouth shut.
thing,
You crack on.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I know I want to hear your reactions to this shit. But so I went in and sat down with this lady, and she basically went, "Do you have any, your proof of ID and shit like that?" And I was like, "Yes, I do. 3 separate different proof of IDs, by the way. I feel like that was meant to kind of be the first kind of fuck you to poor people, because what kind of I need my passport, my driving license, and a bank statement. Like,
well, first of all, you need a driving license,
right?
So
and you need a passport.
You need to have you needed to have passed the driving test and
paid
for that.
And paid for that. You need a passport,
which you also have to pay for.
And you need a bank statement, which means I need money. Nah, but like most
everyone
everyone
has a bank statement.
Yeah, right. But it seemed like it quite excessive to me, but whatever. I brought all that in, and then she basically went, "Okay, so in order to be able to claim your money, we need you to spend 35 hours a week looking for jobs." Straight off, and I went, "Well, I'm not going to do that." And she went, "What?" And I went, "Well, I'm not going to do that. And there aren't enough jobs out there for me to apply for to justify me spending 35 hours a week looking for jobs. So I'm not actually going to do that. Like, I'll lie, but but I'm not actually going to spend 35 hours a week looking for jobs." And she went, "Well, no, we need you to." And I was like, "Okay." And I went, is like training making yourself more like viable as an employee? Does that count? And she went, "Oh yeah, training totally counts." And I went, "Okay, in which case, yeah, I can do 35 hours. The reason being is I'm currently teaching myself how to sew, which is a viable skill. Like, there are jobs out there that they'll go, 'Oh, you can use a sewing machine, great, here's a job.'"
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm as good enough to be a seamstress or a tailor, because that requires a high level of training.
But the point is training towards it.
Well, not necessarily towards that, but there are jobs that require you to use a sewing machine, but not require you to be the level of a seamstress.
I get you.
Anyway, she said, "Oh, that's great, awesome, yeah, you can totally do that." At which point I went, "Okay, I can do that. That's easy," because I spent like an hour. I'd spend an hour or two a day looking for all the jobs in the local area that I can apply for, and I apply for them, and then I spend the rest of the day training myself how to do sewing, because it's important to keep a structure in your day, otherwise you just kind of stew a bit.
Preach it.
Yeah. And she went, "Oh, okay." And she went, "Oh, we'll put you on a thing we'll put you on this like training course if you need a CV done." And I went, "Oh, I don't need my CV done. I have a CV." And she went, "Oh, I don't know. Can we have a look at it?" Like doubting that my CV was good enough. And I went, "Yeah." So I took my laptop out and I showed her my CV, and she was like, "Oh, yeah, that's a really good CV." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. I've got about over a dozen jobs at this point. I know what I'm doing in regards to applying for jobs and getting them. Like, I have a proven track record, if you look at my CV, of getting lots of jobs. I wish I didn't."
In order to do that, she has to actually look at your CV.
Yeah, true.
Just saying, bro.
Anyway, well, no, this comes
there is a check.
This comes up later.
In their defense.
Anyway, and then she goes, "So how do you apply for jobs?" And I go, "Well, I go on the websites, I look through the jobs, and I apply for ones that are relevant to the skills that I have and the job that I want." And she goes, "Well, what websites do you look on?" And I go, "Yeah, I look on Indeed, I look on Reed, and I look on CV Library, because I found that those are those three cover most of the jobs that come up, and looking at other websites doesn't help with that, because all of the jobs come up on all of the different websites."
Could I just chime in here?
Right.
Just briefly, for anyone listening, this might be useful information for you. Also, if you actually go into the job centre, there's a board that they have. You don't have to talk to anyone, but there's jobs available in the area, and there's also apprenticeship stuff, and there's information on training schemes. But just in case you didn't know, most foyers in job centres have that.
Yeah.
And I would recommend going there to look at it.
Yeah, if you can stomach the atmosphere, go.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, actually, legit, that is worth doing, and also, like, you know, if you do need the money, stomach the fucking system. Like, that's the other thing.
Yes, no. This this story that you're telling is in no way trying to is in no way saying to people you shouldn't go to the job centre.
This is me going.
If you are struggling,
if
you are struggling for money, and this is what you need to do, you need to go and do that.
You need to sit there and grit your teeth and fucking be treated like fucking invalids.
And it is horrific, and it is horrible, but unfortunately, that's what you need to do, and unfortunately, it's what you need to do to survive.
Yeah.
And also goes a long way to explaining why homelessness is on the rise the way it is.
Yeah.
Because they do make you feel like a filthy scrounger.
Yeah. Because I personally, I'd rather be homeless than have to deal with that shit.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, you say that having not been homeless.
You got a point. Yeah, as soon as I said it, I was like, and I feel like this is a lot of the anger talking and not an actual kind of like sat down.
Thought about the realities of that.
Thought through the reality of it as a life. Like, I'm pretty sure, I would put up with it if I really needed to. On reflection of that, so ignore that. That was me being a little prissy bitch. But anyway, I'm pretty good at that. You're probably already aware if you're listening to this podcast.
Yep.
Fuck you.
You wanted me to chime in.
Anyway, like, she then goes, well, that's not enough websites. We need you to look at more websites.
Right.
And I go, why? And she goes, well, there's this findjob.co.uk website. And I went, is that the one that...
That's not an answer to that question.
No. and she goes, and I go, is that the one that the job centre essentially sets up and requires you to go on and log all of your time and shit? And she was like, yeah. And I went, yeah, I tried that the last time I signed up for job seekers, and I did sign up for job seekers in Folkestone, and I lasted about 2 weeks, which is why I didn't do it this time, because I was aware of how fucking annoying it is.
I was around for this.
Yeah. I did it. I went to like one meeting, and then I just never went back and got another job. And also, I'd like to point out here that the experience I had at the job centre did not spur me to get a job. I was looking for jobs before I signed up, and in fact, the hard work that I did during that time led to me getting that job.
Yeah.
It's just a case of you don't immediately get a job, you apply for a lot of them, and then you hear back from it, and it'll take about a month or two for that process to kick off usually.
And you were signing on because you wanted to make sure you had some income, because you were wanting to make sure you made rent.
Yeah, because I was in a fucking flat, and I had to pay rent and shit, right? And I just wanted to make sure that was going to be okay, but then I rather than do that, I was like, no, fuck this, I'm just going to fucking risk it. Crash or burn, because I'm not putting up with that shit. Anyway, so I was kind of aware of what I was coming into, but it still kind of was just like, well, fuck the fucking job centre, what the fuck is going on? Because the people that end up hiring for these jobs are also pieces of shit for the most part. Like, that I've met anyway. Like, I'm sure there are nice ones involved in the system, but they're nonetheless still working within a system that is fucking flawed. I also can't help but feel
it, like, it's pretty soul-destroying.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll get to that.
No, for the people providing the service.
Yeah. Anyway, so she goes, you have to sign up for this fine job thing, and she starts writing that as in, like, this person will start, like, she was reading it out loud as she was typing it, and I went, no, excuse me, can you not write that, because I'm not going to do that. Like, don't sign me up for something I'm not going to do. You haven't asked me if I'm going to do this, you've just told me I'm going to do it, and you're writing it. And she went, and this is the line that came up quite regularly. I think it had already come up at this point. Well, if you don't want to claim your money, you can always decide not to do it later. Like, if you feel like it's too much, you can always not claim your money. At which point I went, oh, that's really nice, thanks for that. Like, that would be really helpful if I was in a position where I have to have the money. Like, thank you for that. Like, thank you for just telling me to either do it or shut up. Right?
So
like,
this reminds me of something I said to those police officers who'd been called when I refused to leave my mental health service. But the argument I made to him is like, that's the same argument made by health insurance companies. They're not denying care; they're just denying payment. It's like, I'm not denying you help. I'm just denying payment.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right.
Well, fuck you very much.
Yeah. Anyway, and she keeps saying this, and I'm like, look, yeah, but like, I'm telling you, like, the system I've got works for me, and I did explain this. I was like, look, I'm not going to sign up for more websites and spend more time looking through these websites at the same jobs that I've already seen on the 3 that I've got, just on the off chance that maybe there's one that I haven't seen, because and this is what I said to her, because I've recognised that there's a certain amount of time that I can spend. I don't know about everyone else, but I can spend looking for jobs and applying for them. And if I sit there stewing and worrying about the fact that I haven't got a job and thereby pushing myself to look further and further, it impacts my mental health to the point where I then end up looking for jobs.
Yeah.
So it's important for me to do it for like an hour or two, boom, bam, applied for the jobs that I found on those 3 websites, covers the majority, and then just forget about it until the next day where there are more jobs to come up, right? Because, by the way, I'm doing this like Monday to Friday, right? So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 2 hours a day looking at all the jobs that have come up on the previous days. Yeah. On Monday, looking over the whole weekend.
6 to 10 hours,
right?
At least a week. And then there's the time you spend sewing.
And then there's the time I spend applying for those jobs, because that's just the amount of time it takes without finding the jobs, and then it will take a bit longer if I found enough jobs to apply for that day, and then you apply for them. So it just usually works out as 1 to 2 hours, because there aren't a whole lot of jobs that need a craftsman at the moment, because our industry in that regard is not great at the moment because of technological advances and stuff like that, and also the fact that it's overseas because we focused on our banking industry like twats.
Service sector.
Yeah, whatever. Same difference. Anyway, so I explained this to this lady, and she doesn't really care, because she's and then she comes up with the line of, yes, but it's not about finding the right job, is it? It's just about finding a job. And I went, well,
what?
Like, forgive me, but no. Again, like, I'm not just looking for any job. Like, I'm not, because I went and look at my CV. What do you notice about this CV? An awful lot of jobs over an awful lot of short period of time. Do you want to know why that is? Because I kept taking the first job that became available, and thereby ended up in a job that I wasn't comfortable with. And this was a pretty good line, I felt. And I went, as I am sure you are aware, I am not the greatest at fitting into societal norms and not expressing my emotions. Even when I'm trying, it will be very apparent on my face, right? Because at this point I was like quite like belligerent.
Bitch, you crazy.
Yeah. and so I went, so I'm not looking for just another job, right? Like I'm looking for the right job, the one that I'm going to stick with, that I'm going to spend a lot of time doing. I was going to spend a long time in, thereby paying a lot of taxes and paying for your fucking job.
Please tell me you said that.
No, I didn't say that. I wish I had, but like I did say the rest of it though, which is like, yeah, I'm not looking for the next job. I'm looking for the right job, because I don't see the point in doing another shit job that I'm going to end up losing and end up in the same position as I'm in now. Because I've also found that if I'm in a bad job, I won't look for other jobs, because I'm spending too much of my downtime,
mental energies
recovering from the shit job that I'm doing.
No,
and like, and I bet I'm not the only one that's involved in that fucking nasty little cycle, right? Like, and some people can't get out of that, and the only way they can get out of that is with the support of the government. But lo and behold, you're not going to get that.
And not to sound patronising, some people aren't self-aware enough to recognise that.
Yeah.
I mean, I can say that of myself with jobs I've had.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked in health and social care. I ended up having a mental breakdown because of it. Because I was unaware of just how taxing it was on me.
Yeah. No, I remember you just being like, no, I can deal with that. And I was like, fucking hell.
Yeah,
because I was aware of how bad care work was, even though I wasn't
I could deal with it until I couldn't.
Yeah. Right? Fucking hell. Anyway, so then she goes again, well, if you at any point feel like this is too much for you, then you don't have to claim the money. Like, as in, like, and I felt like she just wanted to fucking get the information down and get me out, right? It's like she wasn't interested in having any conversation about this. And I went, well, like...
Yeah, it's because they're there to tick boxes. They're not there to have a debate on it.
No, well...
Nuance is lost on
Not there to have a debate on it, but I wasn't trying to have a debate. I was trying to... Yeah, like, I guess you're right.
No,
I was trying to explain the situation.
Here's the thing. You are correct, and she may well have known you were correct, but she cannot say that because she has to tick these boxes.
Yeah. Well, no, she did not know that I was correct. We'll get to this because I broached that. Because at this point, I'm like, look, I'm aware that like you're just going through the numbers, and if you don't do this right, then you're going to lose your job as well. Right?
Or at least be called up on it.
Yeah. So like you have to go through the motions, but like, and at this point I was like, look, I don't even care about the money. I just want to get the CSCS card. Is there any way that I can do that? Like, because I'm not going to do this. I just want to sign up so that I can be signed up so that I can get this free CSCS card, and you cannot pay me all you like. I don't give a fuck, right? At which point she goes, no, there's no way to do that, because you need a payment slip in order to be able to go to that course. And I was like, okay, great, so there's no way that you can help me. And she was like, no. And then I'm like, awesome. And then she goes, and also, an awful lot of success stories come through here. Like, and she was like some sort of upper management, right? Because she was talking about the fact that she had other employees that she was looking out for. And she went, an awful lot of success stories come through here, as if like I was talking shit. What? And like, yes, no, this system works and helps an awful lot of people. And I was like, well, that's really nice, but like, it's not the system that does it.
No, you should have been like
individuals.
You should have been like, that's really nice, but the problem is, I'm certainly not going to be one of those success stories.
What I said was, that's really nice, but it's quite clear to me now that the failures aren't in here, are they? The failures don't end up in your system. The failures walk out like I'm about to.
Yeah.
And I'm clearly not a failure because I got a job, but like that wasn't because like as in
your point stands.
Yeah, but I would say that is
you
a
remember
failure of the job centre.
You only log your victories.
That's a failure of the job centre, because the job centre is there to support me until I get my next job, and they have failed to do.
You know what the response to that should have been? Is like, oh, you've had some success stories. Well, then explain rising homelessness to me.
No, what I said was what she said. Oh yeah, no, the system has an awful lot of successes, and what I said to her was, oh yeah, 120,000 deaths is a success, is it? At which point she went, I'm not going to debate that with you. And I was like, yeah, I'm surprised you're not going to, because like there is no answer to that. But this is a woman that clearly believed in the system that she was involved in, right?
I'm not going to answer that because it actually devastates the point I was making.
Yeah. And anyway, that's the point where I get up and start packing up, and she went, oh no, you can't leave yet. We haven't finished doing this. And I was like,
yeah, we have.
No, I'm not. I was like, no, I'm not going to. And then I walked out. And yeah. Fuck it, man. That whole system is just brutal.
Yeah.
And unnecessarily brutal as well, because like I constantly hear this argument of like, oh yeah, but benefit scroungers who sit on their benefits. Oh no, this is the other thing, right? Why should I be expected to work 35 hours a week for £200 a month? Because I could understand the stringent process that's involved with this, and the need to log every hour if they were paying me minimum wage.
Yeah.
Because then I'm working a job, and then I can justifiably feel that it's important that I log my every hour.
Well, the other one as well is like you have to accept any job offered.
Yeah, fuck that as well.
There are other things like that.
Yeah, which it actively encourages you not to just go for the off chance, because also I don't know about anybody else out there, but like my process is I apply for all the jobs that I think are okay. And I also apply for all the jobs that I'm not sure about, right? So I'm like, if a job's like workshop operative and doesn't give a whole lot of information, so it's just like workshop operative repairing loos, right? On the surface, doesn't sound like a fantastic job, right? But I apply for it because I don't know who I'm working for. It could be that the people like what you're working for are great, the company's fantastic, you're like the workshop that you have to work on it is good, as well equipped, and all of those things you find out once you've applied, once they've come back to you, once you've gone to an interview, because an interview is not about can I get the job necessarily. It is for them, but the interview for you is, are these people I want to work for? Is the environment I'm working in suitable?
I would argue most people don't go into interviews thinking like that. They should.
They should.
I don't disagree. Well, we say they should, but again, this is all said from a place of, and I'm going to use this word, privilege.
Right.
So, for example, you have a significant amount of savings.
Oh yeah.
As do I.
No, 100%. No, I am. Like, but whether or not I have the savings, it doesn't change. So like, I would still go to the interview to find these things out.
Okay, here's the thing. You say it doesn't change.
Matt,
let me explain.
Let me finish before you retort.
I haven't finished my point.
Oh, all right. Well, crack on then. You lazy bitch. Speed up. Less words. More response.
If you don't have access to over £100, and I think there was a recent study that showed like something like 60% of the UK population couldn't scramble together £100.
Yeah.
Just on the fly.
Yeah.
Right. They are literally living paycheck to paycheck. If you are in that kind of desperate situation, you are gonna take any job that you can, and you are gonna enter any interview that you go into desperately needing that job.
Right.
It does change a person's psychology.
Yes. but I would still enter the job with the idea of finding out what the environment was like, finding out about the workers were like, and then making the active decision to go, well, this isn't good, but I need the money, so I'm going to do it anyway.
Oh, I see. Right.
Which is actually kind of what I did with the job that I got recently.
Like, is this the mechanic's job?
I'm not going to give any details.
Okay.
But essentially, like there were a couple of flags, like warning signs that I got when I went to the interview that made me go, oh, I don't know if this is necessarily like the ideal for me. But because of the nature of the job market at the moment, I'm going, well, I'm going to take this job anyway because it ticks enough boxes for me.
Yes.
Despite that. And I don't want to be out of work because even though I have significant savings, I'm still very much in a position where I'm like, no, I need to work.
Yeah,
like,
no.
I need an income, you know, like because like those savings aren't for me. They're not for me living day to day. They're for the things that I want to do above that, and it fucking eats at me that I'm eating into my savings.
I mean, that's fine, but again, that is a price of privilege.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm not saying that isn't.
Like, oh well, this is what this money is for. So
I'm not trying to say I feel the plight of a person who can't scramble together 100 quid because I don't, because I have 100 quid.
Right.
And like, fucking hell, that's a whole different conversation right there. So like, I would definitely be in the position of I need 100 quid if it wasn't for for my family. If that makes any sense. So like,
likewise, no, let me and this is what I mean by that is a privilege that we benefit from. That's all I'm saying with that.
Yeah. So like, it's
not everyone has that.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm just highlighting that. Like, that's all I'm doing. I'm not implying anything.
Yeah, because there's no way out of that. Like, at all. Because the way the rent market is at the moment, and the way the minimum wage
Here's
is
the interesting thing, though.
Fucked.
Here's the interesting thing, though. What does that sound like? It sounds like indentured servitude.
Well, it is.
Yeah. I just find that interesting. We live in a country where capitalism is delivered indentured servitude.
Yep.
Redelivered indentured servitude, I should say.
Delightful.
CP as fuck.
Oh, I fucking hate it. And what really bugs me is I found a piece of property that I really wanted to get, and it's coming up on auction in February. And if I had not been fired from the saddler's job, I would be able to afford it. Which hurts my face just a little bit.
Yeah, it would hurt mine.
Luckily I phoned them up, and the guide price is not necessarily what it's going to go for because they've got a lot of interest in it. So I'm
you want to go look at this,
pressed.
right? You
want to go
along.
Oh yeah.
Well, you're not going to bid though, right?
No, unless it's going for the amount of money that I've got.
Unless it's going for a ridiculous.
Unless it's going for 10 grand under the asking price. No, so we're not going to bid. But I just want to go along and experience it and see what happens and
That was a good topic, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. Fucking pissed me off though. Royally pissed me off. Luckily, there was people having tea at the family home, so I chilled out. I was cup of tea, biscuit, little natter, feel much better, cuddle the dog. But not everybody has that.
Exactly.
And that's what I was thinking of the whole time. I was like, I'm really glad that I'm not going back to my rented apartment and going, shit, how am I going to make the rent next month?
Yeah.
And going, how am I going to feed my kids?
And keep a roof over my kids.
How am I going to make sure my wife doesn't, Oh,
and I've got social services visiting because someone's made a complaint.
Right.
I'm just saying,
Yeah. How am I going to put clothes under my kids' backs?
Yeah.
Are we all going to eat, or is it just my kids this week?
Yeah.
And what really bugs me is that that's not people on job seekers that are having to deal with that exclusively. That is also people in work.
Oh yeah.
And that is in two.
Yeah. When I worked in health and social
care,
care,
mother and a father, both in work, can't afford to look after their kids.
Well, no, I think I've made this point on the podcast before, and I've long stood by this. If you live in a society where the government has to subsidise your income with working tax credits,
they fail.
And you as a family unit can't put a roof over your heads and feed yourselves, there is a problem within the economy that needs fixing.
Oh yeah. Right, Matt, talk. I need the loo.
Oh.
Professional!
There's an interesting little bit of science that I wanted to share with people. I recently told a friend of mine about it, and I felt it was podcast worthy. And it's a experiment that, when I found out about it, kind of completely blew my mind with respect to how we came to be and how reality works, which sounds odd, but the experiment is called the Miller-Urey experiment, and what it was a closed system. For those that don't know what a closed system is, it's a system where there is no external input of energy into it, and there's nothing being added or taken away with respect to material. It's not a true closed system, but that's so. For example, planet Earth is not a closed system because you've got the energy of the sun coming in. You could make the argument the sun is a closed system because it's not gaining huge quantities of hydrogen, so it is self-contained, producing its own energy. That's it. Once that fuel burns out, that star is done. That closed system has died. So with the Miller-Urey experiment, what it was is a closed system where you had a beaker which was filled with water and elements of carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, I think phosphate was another one. Basically, organic compounds, organic elements. Atomic elements that you find in pretty much every organic molecule that exists in nature. But in this form, they were in their most basic of elements, and they hadn't yet become organic compounds. This solution, and the atmosphere was the Earth's atmosphere, but which is a bit of an issue with the experiment, but I'll get to that. And what this system did is it heated up water and created a water vapor, which then in atmosphere they had a spark. I think it was like a car starter spark generator that created a spark plug that created a spark inside this vapor, and then they circulated that vapor down into a condenser and fed it back into the beaker to be repeated. And what this apparatus was meant to represent was it was meant to be a facsimile for processes that were going on in proto-Earth. So the beaker, so the condensation cycle represents the water cycle on Earth. The spark represented lightning. The heat represented thermal and solar energy, causing the water to turn to vapor. And they ran this experiment for a couple of days. And so keep in mind, all you've got in here is water and basic elements. So there's no compounds as such. There's no complex compounds in there. And after a number of days, they ran a number of samples through a mass spectrometer and worked out what compounds had been formed. And what they discovered were amino acids. They discovered glycerol, which is a base component for lipids, which is what produces your cell wall is made up of. And what it showed was that complex organic compounds can occur in purely through physical processes without an organic progenitor. So right now, all of these things are produced through enzymes and metabolism within cells, but in actuality, these things were also occurring in the environment anyway. So before life existed, the building blocks of life were being created via these chemical processes in nature, in the physical world. And this is an explanation for how it's a start in trying to understand how life came to be. Now, for those of you who aren't religious and don't believe God just did it, people want to know and understand what processes led to life. The other thing that turned up in this experiment was something called ribose, which is used massively throughout the entire body and in various metabolic processes. But the one where it's particularly significant is DNA. It actually makes up the backbone chain for deoxyribose nucleic acid. So the backbone for the DNA molecule was being made by natural processes. So this, in pre-life Earth, creates a kind of environment where you have all of these, what are now classified as organic compounds, existing before any organism existed. And this goes some way to explaining why life is built on the things that are built. The other thing that was interesting about this experiment was the amino acids that didn't turn up, which raised questions of, well, where did they come from? And what they've discovered is that there are these amino acids have been found in meteorites. And it's a bit unclear as to whether or not these amino acids occurred in space and then landed on Earth with impact, or whether or not the process of the meteor impacting the Earth created these amino acids. Either way, it's nonetheless interesting because that the Muller-Urey experiment didn't have an element of that. It didn't have a facsimile for meteor impacts. So it would be interesting to know. Like there have since then been other experiments done, and there's been other research in other areas for one of the things you need for a protocell to form is what's called a phospholipid bilayer, which is basically a membrane that allows you to isolate one solution from another. A phospholipid bilayer is also what a cell is. And you need various organelles within a cell have their own phospholipid bilayer or version of it, which you need to carry out specific. Think of them as little chemical reaction chambers that you can then move products in and out of. You need to have a system that creates that. And there's been various experiments that have shown that, like in geothermal vents and in various underground geysers, those types of membranes can form. Which again is another hint as to how the original kind of proto-cell from which all life came evolved, or just occurred naturally.
So you're all probably realising how much better this podcast would be without me right now. I understand too, but at the moment I'm the one that owns the microphone, so you're still stuck with me until Matt buys his own. But yeah. There's a little bit of fucking science for your face.
That's a piece of science that when I found out about it fucking blew my mind. And the reason being is I was raised born again Christian and believed God did it. And this experiment was able to show me, or made me realise for the first time, well actually no, the laws of the universe and how physics and chemistry work mean that it could have occurred naturally without.
But did God make the laws, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, this is...
Did God make the law?
Yeah, that tends to be the fallback position.
Yeah.
But in which case...
That's lazy as shit. So.
Yeah, it's lazy as shit, and I'd rather know how life originated than whether or not God made those laws.
No, I get you.
And if God did make those laws, great. But so
that's
what?
Really cool, though.
Yeah.
Like...
other interest.
You were created by lightning.
Yeah, no, straight up. Here's another little random science factoid, which might blow your noodle. All of the atoms within our body and that make up the Earth and everything that's on here has its origins in the supernova of a star.
Oh yeah, I knew that one.
Yeah, we were one. Like we are stardust. Like
that's a fairly well-known one, though.
It is, yeah. But just think about that though. Everything that we are made up of, the building blocks we are made up of, were formed in the crucible of a star.
Mm.
Like, metal as fuck, first of all.
Yeah.
But just also, fucking hell.
And what do? Shit on each other's chests.
Yes. I mean, again, not only do we stand on the shoulders of giants, we also slip in the shit of fucking idiots.
Oh man! Oh Jesus! That was good.
Now,
I like that.
As yeah.
What are you going to be, son? Are you going to stand on the shoulders of giants or slip in the shit of idiots?
Which is why I think dogs are actually the superior species. Think about it. You've never seen a dog standing in a human shit. I think they've conned us.
I mean, it's the whole meme of an Egyptian statue of a cat talking to a cat, and it's, you know, like, do they still worship us, child? And then the cat's like, well, I shit in a box, and they clean it up, and he's like, good.
Yeah, no, again, accurate. There's that other meme of wolves, which is like, listen, like two wolves kind of having a conversation with speech bubbles, and he's like, listen, Harry, I've got this idea. We're going to rebrand ourselves as dogs, and what we get is free meals, and all we have to do is hang around. They might want to stroke us and pet us, but like, what do you reckon? I reckon we could do this.
It's accurate.
It's better than chasing that fucking deer. You with me?
You're crazy, Greg. It'll never work.
Well, oddly enough, and I have no idea how they work this out, but there is a behavioural evolutionary paper that a study that concluded that the inciting incident that led to, or like the mechanisms at play that led to the domestication of wolves into dogs, was the wolf's choice. In so much as it can be a choice. Humans didn't decide to domesticate wolves. Wolves decided to become domesticated.
Right.
Which is interesting.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it's not that we exerted our will onto them. They let us domesticate them. Anyway, so Corbyn maybe said a thing.
Yeah, but what is the thing that he maybe said?
I think it's what a bunch of chocolate fucks, personally.
I don't really give a fuck. I don't think it matters.
So,
I think muttering something under your breath, the whole point of it is it's muttered under your breath.
Yeah.
So, because, you know, like, so should we be judged by what we mutter under our breath? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, let's pretend, first of all, that he did say stupid woman.
Right. Is he wrong?
Yeah, I mean, was he addressing the House of Commons? No.
Yeah, no.
He was sat down, which means he wasn't addressing the House of Commons. So, let's just assume he did. Does it matter?
Like, it truly astounds me that this occurs and people aren't immediately like, what kind of fucking, like, what angle are you trying to go for here?
The best,
you know, what scheme are you spinning? This is
the
news?
The best tweet I saw in response to this, which I think was from a Tory MP, was everybody's a feminist when they can use it to attack the person they disagree with.
Yeah,
which I think sums it up, really.
I reckon it does. Yeah.
But on the subject of that, of things said by people and outrage, where was the outrage when David Cameron said "calm down, dear" while addressing the House of Commons?
Now,
I mean, like, not being funny.
Way more sexist.
If I'm going to think of something as sexist, "calm down, dear." Yeah, I mean, quoting the advert that was doing the rounds at the time by that fucking stupid TV personality, you would say, "Calm down here, it's only a commercial."
Oh, what a wanker.
That's what he was referencing with that. And that advert was cashing in on the, misogyny, how quaint. It literally was. That was the trope that it was using. Perhaps in a kind of meta-textual, self-aware way, but, you know.
I'd like to forget that David Cameron existed.
Well, yeah, and then the week previously, an SNP member being told by a Tory member to go home.
Wow. Like,
I mean,
Jesus.
Where was the I don't mean public outrage now. I mean, where was the MP outrage then?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, that's grim.
And also...
I'm racist.
And also, that very week, a Tory MP had actually audibly said that very thing. Stupid woman.
Yeah.
So, at the very least, you should be outraged at him as well. Said the exact same thing, right?
Yeah. No, but it's all about Corbyn.
Yeah, also...
And I hate to say it, but it's working.
No, it's not. It really isn't.
There's a lot.
Why do you think it's working?
Because
I should say that.
Because there's a lot of people that I interact with who don't like Jeremy Corbyn. There's a lot of people.
But that's always been the case.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people who don't like, who are like, oh man, the Tory party is really shit, and then they're like, but Jeremy Corbyn is as well, and then I'm like, okay, who did you vote for?
Usually those people will say UKIP. just been my experience of it.
Fair. Yeah, actually, to be fair, like, I don't like the fact that my mind now sees our political system as a two-party government, but I feel like we have reached that point.
Well, we've always been that's why we have a first past the post system. It was assumed that it was that you would always just have two parties.
Yeah.
That's like our democracy was engineered by that.
Yeah,
around
true.
that concept.
Yeah, like
it is changing.
I'm.
It is changing to the. Sorry, if I just because this just occurred to me and I'll forget it otherwise. It is changing to the point where if we don't adjust it quickly enough, Scotland and Wales and Ireland will want to secede the state because they are no longer represented. They specifically set up parties, but they're operating in a democratic system that works on the assumption that it's always going to be a two-party system.
Yeah.
So we do need some parliamentary reforms when it comes to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's just so fucking stupid, though. But anyway, back to the original point. Yeah, Jeremy Corbyn
said a thing.
What's the other thing that's come up recently?
Oh, also everyone now apparently is a fucking lip reader. Who knew?
Also, Jeremy Corbyn will continue with Brexit should he be voted in. That one, I think.
Has he actually officially said that now?
I think so. I think that has come up. Yeah.
It's interesting if so. Well, because the whole political strategists who comment on the BBC and other news networks have all said, like, well, if he comes down one way or the other, he loses a significant amount of his support either way.
Yeah, I'm looking up the article. I read it in.
Yeah,
it was just this stupid little fucking blog post by this guy. So, in his interview with The Guardian, Jeremy Corbyn repeated his support for Brexit going ahead. What he said was, "My proposal at this moment is that we go forward with Brexit."
Yeah.
So, yeah. Interesting. I mean, like, I'm glad he did, in a lot of ways, because he's always been a Eurosceptic, and he's always been against the idea of Europe, the EU. So, it makes me...
I don't know if he's explicitly gone against the trade... Oh, what's the thing? The commercial aspect of... The initial thing that we signed up for. I'm not sure if he was against that, but I do think he has a problem with the Brussels directive thing that we have to modify our laws around.
Yeah. So, I'm glad he's stuck to his guns. I'm glad he's proven, again, that he is a man of principle and not a man of politics. Like, a man of principle first, and then a man of politics second. And yeah, I'm still going to vote for him, even though I disagree with that. Because
yeah, I mean, I would argue that if we were to leave the EU, I would rather have a party in power that believed in nationalising key aspects of our infrastructure to ensure that our country continues to function.
Yeah.
Rather than have a party that systematically looks to shut that down. Mm-hmm. And just to be clear, there are potential economic impacts for that, but in the long run, I believe
we'll
that...
be better off.
To put it bluntly...
Until somebody privatises it all.
But to put it bluntly, a mixed economy is always better than one that is one extreme or the other. Like full-blown communism, where everything is state-owned, even your labour, or capitalism, or full-blown free market capitalism, which...
Where nothing is owned.
Well, it's owned if you can afford it.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, that's privatisation of the police, that's privatisation of the health service, that's privatisation of anything. You want justice, you have to have the money. Although, to be fair, currently we live in the system, if you want justice, you need money. Or if you want to fight injustice done to you by the system, you need money.
Yeah.
So, there are... But like I said, a mixed economy is always better. It's the question is what scale and what aspects of your economy do you nationalise, and that's uniquely dependent on each economy.
Yeah, so Jeremy Corbyn maybe said a thing.
Yeah,
Theresa May did install 2 MPs under suspicion of rape to win her vote, though. Remember that one?
Oh, yes.
That was
Yes.
Yeah, so like
But Corbyn's misogyny, oh my god.
An MP was restored to the whip. For those who don't know, that's the guy that goes around and makes sure the party votes in line with what the party wants. Yeah. And the MP that Theresa May restored to the position of whip for her vote of no confidence
is currently
facing accusations of rape.
Yeah.
But we don't feel outraged at that. I don't know why, but we don't. Also, it would be really nice to just quickly point out that Margaret Thatcher got more votes than Theresa May and still resigned from the party. So,
that is interesting.
Yeah. You know, with a larger party at the time as well.
A larger majority at the time. Yeah, it wasn't a hung parliament, first of all.
So Margaret Thatcher decided that because not enough of her party supported her, she needed to resign. But Theresa May seems content. I
will give Thatcher credit for one thing. She was a woman of principle.
Yeah.
I should say a person of principle. It doesn't matter what your gender is.
She's still a fucking cunt, though.
I mean, yes, but in the same way that I massively hate Theresa May, I can't help but admire her resolve.
Ugh.
Sorry, like.
Yeah, well.
She's a fucking trooper. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, true enough.
And I can't help but admire her for continuing to fucking plod on.
Yeah, I guess.
But that is it.
Begrudgingly.
I think she's plodding on for a shit agenda. 100%.
Plodding on for personal gain. I think that's what she's doing.
Or a shit agenda.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got one last thing.
Cool. We should probably wrap it up
unless you've got anything.
Don't think so. No? Crack on.
So Trump is threatening a shutdown.
Woohoo!
Because he wants the. I
want my wall.
Yeah, he wants the budget. What was it? He wants the budget to approve. Is it $5 billion or something? I forget the amount. A silly amount of money. To build this wall, which apparently has already started being built, according to him.
His invisible wall.
Yeah. He's done some wonderful comparisons as well, like basically saying things like the Israeli wall is 99% effective, like to counter people's.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Is it really though?
I mean, like the thing to remember there is Israel has banned flights from Palestine into its airports. So, like, for Trump to see those gains, he's going to have to ban flights from Mexico into the US.
Yeah. And have a shoot-on-sight policy.
Why? Oh! Was that a really fucking brutal dig at Israel?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a really brutal dig.
Careful now.
What are they going to do? Shoot me?
I'm
in England.
In the words of the pedophile protecting Catholics. Careful now.
Jesus. It's alright, Matt, because like I can say things like that and I'll be okay, but if I say stupid women, then I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Oh God, could you imagine if Jeremy Corbyn dug Israel? Did a dig like that in Israel? Like, just the media just exploding. Like, oh, it'd be beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, fucking hell.
So,
yeah, Trump.
Yeah, for a little context, I believe he has done this before to further his like political agenda. I'm just going to say it bluntly. I think it's a great move that's catering to his voter base. I think it's a terrible decision for for America as a country and its economy. But as a strategy to ensure the loyalty of his supporters, I think it's genius. The only potential error in this is, well, actually, no, it's not an error because the average Trump supporter isn't going to know this, but or care. But first of all, Mexico ain't paying for it.
Yeah.
The American taxpayer is. Also added to that is there's a petition that has got like I think last time I checked like 300,000 signatories, which is like basically American citizens declaring their will to pay tax in order to get this wall built. It's like a declaration. It's got all this kind of really fancy nationalistic, patriotic language in it. Like, they are willing to bear this burden to build this wall.
But they're not bearing the burden.
What do you mean?
Like they're not... Like signing a petition going, I want a bit of my taxes to go towards building this wall. Like 300,000 people, yeah, that's great, but like
You have a
the
population of
percentage,
200 million.
yeah, the percentage of all of those people's taxes, like what's 5 billion to the budget? Is my question. What percentage of the
5
budget
billion
is
to the
that?
budget is fuck all.
Right,
but-
it's of a percent, right? Around that.
Like, I think the American economy is either 1.5 or 2.5 trillion.
Yeah.
So
No, but the yearly budget. The yearly budget. What's 5 billion?
So what's 5 billion into 1.5 trillion? I think a trillion is 1,000 billion.
No, I'm not talking about their economy. I'm talking about the government's yearly budget.
Oh, that I don't know.
Right, but it's going to be like a couple of percent, maybe, if you're
Yeah.
lucky. So like a couple of percent of 300,000 people's taxes can now go towards that wall.
Yeah.
That's not 5 billion.
Oh, I see.
That's like
Well, I mean, first of all, you
a couple
can't.
of thousand.
First of all, I believe like the law is quite strict on this because tax law is pretty fucking strict.
Yeah.
You can't voluntarily associate for a tax,
Yeah.
like, which is what the petition kind of seems to be trying to do.
Yeah. But it's also like even like it's stupid. Like those 300,000 people should all chip a fiver in and start a charity to build the wall.
What you're saying a GoFundMe for the wall?
Yeah, right. Start a GoFundMe. Get 5 billion. There you go.
On the subject of this wall, actually, have you heard Cards Against Humanity has used some of its profits to buy up a strip of land along the US-Mexican border?
Yeah.
To prevent the wall being built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's genius.
Which, like...
And hired lawyers in order to start...
no, we will fight this.
Yeah,
we will make the American government pay for this if they really want to go for it. Which is nice. There's a nice little bit of collective... There's a nice example of capitalism working.
Well, I would argue there's a nice example of individualism working. But
yes, capitalism ultimately has its roots in individualism.
Oh, true. Oh, Jesus.
Was that your jawbone or cheekbone?
Well, no. First of all, I rubbed my thing against my cheek, and I think I caught a nerve. And
that's going to paint a wonderful picture for the people listening. I rubbed my thing against my cheek.
My finger. I rubbed my hand against my eye because my eye was because I was like, oh, I'm tired, man. This is fucking boring. Can we stop? No, that's not true. And then I rubbed my cheekbone, and that hurt. And I was like, why the fuck does that hurt? It's not the bone. It's something fleshy. And then I cracked my jaw, which is quite a common thing. But then Matt was like, "Was that your jaw?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's my jaw. It cracked."
When I exclaimed jaw, I meant cheekbone.
Eventually, I will get arthritis in the jaw. I'm sure.
Thank you for that wonderfully accurate rendition of my voice. Was that your jaw?
What makes it funnier is you just said it and everybody's heard it, and yet I felt the need to repeat it.
But like. What we're actually saying, that's what I initially sounded like.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. That is completely accurate.
Okay.
Fake news. Anybody who says otherwise.
All right. And the other argument that has been made by Trump as to how he'll get Mexico to pay for it if they don't agree to just send the US money, is he's going to take it out on them with tariffs.
Which you can't do.
Well, no, he can and has been doing, but the trouble with that is it shows a complete lack of understanding how tariffs work.
Yeah, it impacts private business.
Like a tariff is actually what you're burdening the American people with. You're not burdening Mexico with it. You're burdening your citizens with it.
Yeah.
They aren't paying it. The American people are.
If anything... You're making Mexico money?
Trump likes to say that he's a great negotiator and like knows deals and has a brilliant brain and knows the best words and a genius intellect, but like to not understand how tariffs work
shows a fundamental stupidity.
Yeah. And here's the thing: he will have plenty of economic advisors and experts that can explain this to him.
So it's not like he doesn't have the information readily available. He just literally.
It's like he heard that and was like, meh. Oh God, there is this amazing story, and I hope this is true.
Right.
Which is that when he went to when he did like his tour, where he came to the UK and then he also went to Europe, and he met who's the Prime Minister of Germany? I forget her name.
I know you.
Jean-Claude Juncker? Juncker?
I can't remember her name either. Shall I Google it while you talk?
Well, it's not important, but he was talking with her, and he said, "So, can we talk about a trade deal with Germany?" And she said, and she says to him, "You're going to have to do that with the EU because we can't negotiate our own trade deals." The
Angela
EU.
Merkel.
Angela Merkel. Merkel. Yeah, that was it. John Claude. I was like,
One
that's
of
a
my
male
favourite
name.
female politicians.
Yeah.
You know, up there with Mariah Black.
Yeah, Maria Black.
Maria, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, so he says, so can we do, and she's like, yeah, you're going to have to do that with the EU. And apparently he asked her that.
10 times.
Yeah.
Like
11 times.
11. Oh, Jesus.
And each time she said the EU. And then on the 11th time of her responding that way, he goes, okay, we'll do a deal with the EU. Because he didn't understand how it took him 11 times
just to understand that he couldn't do it with her
like,
right now.
When she's saying you'd have to do it with the EU, she meant you would literally have to do it with the EU because of how our system is structured. It took him 11 goes to realise that. Not that she was just being difficult. Like I said, I hope that's fucking true.
Yeah, but what would really worry me is if Trump was in charge of my, like trade deals and shit like that. It's like it would be very easy to convince Trump that he's getting a good deal when he really fucking isn't.
Yeah. Because
all you got to do is stoke his ego and it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, you could literally just be like, okay, Mr. Trump, we will send you all of this and all of this and all of this, but we will not budge on the tariff for paper.
Yeah.
And then all you have to do is, like, eke that out for a couple of days and then be like, okay, Mr. Trump, I didn't want to do this, but because of your, persistent trade negotiations,
brilliant negotiation style,
we will drop the tariff on the paper, and then he'll be like, "Oh, that's great, yeah, American people," and then like everything else that he just
and then for the next 5 days, he's going to talk about nothing but paper, and how shit the original deal was on paper. I mean, like, in all honesty, I think you're probably right, and I think it goes a long way to explaining why, like, so many people resign from his presidency.
Yeah.
So, like, Mad Dog Mattis recently resigned as his chief of security. Is it chief of security or I forget now?
Yeah.
But like, a former general has resigned, and I have a sneaking suspicion it's to do with it's people in the White House manipulating Trump and talking like smack about each other. Basically trying to convince him that the other person is doing a shit job. And they're all just trying to manipulate the fuck out of him.
Yeah. No, wouldn't be surprised.
And what happens when you talk shit about, friends and family, shall we say, and spread like poison and drip poison into the ear of a man who probably has dementia and is senile? Well, I'll tell you what happens. You get sudden adjustments to the will, don't you? I'm just saying, like, the whole psychology of this and the whole fallout of everything that he does just seems to be like that.
Right.
Like, we've all met people where, like, there's been massive divisions in families caused because of, like, people getting their dying loved one, in parentheses, to change their will at the last moment. You know what I mean?
I kind of do, yeah.
It's kind of like a paragraph.
I just don't like thinking about that because it's fucking grim.
It is grim, but my point is, like, this is the vibe I always get when I like look at the fucking shit show that is the Trump administration.
I feel you. Fucking Trump. Jesus Christ. He probably has dementia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably.
Sorry, that's the only way I can explain him asking 11 times. That's the only way I can explain, like, in my own head, his speaking style.
Ooh, shit, that'd be grim.
What?
if that was true.
Yeah, and it's not the first time that like the American government has covered up the fact that one of their presidents was very ill.
Mm.
I think they did it with Hoover. He had, was it polio or something? He had something which meant he was in a wheelchair. And like at speaking events, he had to wear a special harness that would keep his legs straight. And they would frame it so that like there would be a curtain closed so no one would realise. Yeah, for a long time. Yeah, one of the presidents this was the case for.
Jesus.
Where they just completely hid the fact that he was ill.
That's grim. Well, I feel like we've reached the natural conclusion for this podcast.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
Get those drone components while you can, folks.
Buy those highly efficient electrical engines.
Well, power to weight ratio.
It's not an engine, it's a...
Motor,
that's it. That's what I'm trying to think of. Jesus. Maybe I'm going senile. Oh, it's a grim thought. We're going to get old one day, Matt. What are we going to do then?
Talk about how shit everything is, just like now.
Yes, but hopefully on our own land.
Hopefully on our own land, popping the kids' footballs that kicked it over our fence.
Oh, mate, if I've bought land anywhere near where a kid could kick a football over the fence, I've done a bad job. I want to be like surrounded by a field.
I'm looking forward to being properly crotchety, like to the point where like it's real kind of vindictive shit. Like, so my back garden is just like there's like totem after totem with popped footballs, like mounted, like fucking like, victory trophies.
No, you're not thinking about this right, Matt. What it's going to be?
Fuck you! Don't tell me what I'm about, son.
No, I'm telling you what you're about, son, because you're going to love this, because this is a much better idea.
This had better be good. This had better be perfect.
Okay, like spikes with drones.
I still prefer my idea.
No,
yes.
No, it's better, man. It's what's going to be in the future as well. They're not going to be playing about with balls. They're going to be playing with drones and you're just going to have your own little like GPS like fucking map, right, where they stop working and they're just going to fall out.
It's geofence.
And you're going to be like,
I'm going to have my own auto hacker that just takes the drone and brings it inside.
You are, and I'm going to be like, for fuck's sake, Matt, really? Like, again?
Well, then I'm
like,
going to take
one?
I'll take it apart for scrap and sell it on eBay.
Ooh.
Rather than have a pension. Nah, man, I'm stealing Amazon drones.
Hey, I tell you what, I've given up on the idea of having a pension.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about you. Like,
yeah.
Because even if you can get a pension, it's going to be shit.
Yeah.
And it's going to fail. Because, like, economy. Oh, wow. Yeah, final thoughts. Don't bother with a pension. Yeah, get a drone and fly it near our future home. Sir.
Yeah, but in this economy?
Nah, man, it's gonna be fine. Like, I'm just hoping that, like, you know, the areas that we're hoping to buy land in, you know, everybody doesn't realise it before I've got enough money, so they're still cheap enough. But, like, because that's my main worry, you know, everybody suddenly going, oh, yeah, do you know what? We should all do this.
You're not going to get that.
Why not?
Because the kind of people who are going to be buying land there are wanting to adopt a particular type of lifestyle where they don't have a career. Or if they do have a career, it's based where they live.
True.
Like everyone else who's climbing that socio-economic hierarchy is going to London.
True.
Which is not what that place is.
True.
And also the city of that place is not going to be going up.
I was watching Homes Under the Hammer the other day.
Mm.
And it was...
My condolences.
I know. Well, my mum likes watching it, so... You know.
It's fun.
And she keeps going, you want to buy land, you should watch this show.
It's funny enough, my mother does as well. She watches that.
Yeah.
Tells me the same thing.
Anyway, and it was a guy in 2005 bought a home in London, and they filmed it in 2005, and they were like, it should go for £330,000, and this was on the Thames in London, right?
On the Thames?
It was like 100 foot from the Thames.
You just said Thames. I was like,
well,
what the fuck is the Thames? You meant Thames.
I'm tired, man. Leave me alone. Anyway,
300,000.
and me and my mum were watching this, and like they were like, and they went to auction, and it went up to like 370,000, and this guy was still bidding for it, and they were like, "Oh my god, what's he doing? Oh, I hope this pans out for him." And me and my mum were like, "It's gonna pan out for him. It's like it's really gonna pan out
That's
for him."
2005. I'm still
Well, that
surprised.
was
2005, 350.
Yeah.
Like, was that like that's insane?
Right? It's only been like fucking what 15 years.
Yeah.
And then they went back in 2013, which was 5 years ago, right? And they valued his house at 1.2 million.
Yeah. Doesn't surprise me.
1.2 million. Do you know how much it rents for? £3,700
A month, yeah, per calendar.
a month. How do we think that our housing market and our minimum wage are in any way viable right now? When it's 3 times the minimum wage. You'd need 3 people on minimum wage to afford a 3-bedroom house in London. 3 people. And so and that's not even like affording anything else, that's just affording the rent for the house. So you need 4 people if you want to eat.
I can see why poly relationships are on the rise.
Oh, I hate you, Matt.
It's an economic decision. It makes sense.
Yeah, because you're going to be able to get a stable home environment that would be able to afford the rent for a long period of time for a poly relationship.
Oh, fucking shots fired, son. No, I just meant more because, like, if it's 3 bedrooms, so you get 3 couples.
Oh, couples.
Right.
Who all sleep with each other.
Yeah, all in it.
Right. Yeah, that's going to last. I see that lasting a long time. Yep. Ugh.
That is a trend I've noticed, though.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it.
What, couples living in...
No, like groups of people renting a like large apartment together. So it's like 6 people in a 6-room apartment. Well, actually, it's probably more than that. It's probably close to like 9 or 10 people in a 6-bedroom apartment. I know that sounds massive, but there are certain places where it's communal living basically.
Yeah.
But they all fuck each other.
Oh.
Is my point.
Lovely. Good for them.
I
hope they have fun.
No, yeah. But my point is, like, there is a certain amount of economic sense to that.
Oh, I agree, but there's also the exact same amount of economic sense for 6 to 10 people who aren't fucking each other to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's true, and that's exactly what migrant workers that come from like Poland or Lithuania, they'll all like chip together on getting a house, but like it's a 3-bedroom house, but fucking 15 people live there.
On shifts.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Like I don't know why a company hasn't been set up where people sign up to do that for 3 years. Like you all do that for UK people.
Because it's technically illegal.
Is it?
Yeah, you're not supposed to have that many people in that kind of a home.
Oh, okay, right. But yeah, like I just kind of think like that's like we're returning back to the old days of like the workhouses and shit.
Yay!
Yeah, but
woohoo!
No, my point is, it's a valid behaviour that gives you a significant advantage.
So, final thoughts. Trump is senile. Get into a poly relationship for the economic benefit.
For that low rent money.
For that got milk money. And don't move to London.
Unless you're in a poly relationship.
Funnily enough, now I think about it. All the poly people in London.
I know, right? No, seriously, that just occurred. Like, I know I said it jokingly, but as I said it, I was like, that, like, legit could be could be a factor.
It's because there's a lot of people in London a lot of people who you know are poly who come from London. That's why that is the case. There's not a lot. Like, I would love for a study to be done, but I don't think there's a larger poly per capita.
Does environment create behaviour, or does behaviour create environment?
Oh, I don't know, Matt, but maybe we should end the podcast on that cliffhanger.
I agree.
God, Oblivio.
All right.